Live in 3, 2, 1.
Good evening and welcome to the Town Council's Community Resources Committee. This meeting has been temporarily replaced by an advisory group and will be conducted in accordance with the Town Council's agreed remote meetings protocol. This meeting is being streamed live and is available to view on our website. I will take this opportunity to just apologise that we are running a little bit late. We have run into a couple of slight technical issues, but we hope we have now resolved those. I will now ask the Assistant Town Clerk to carry out a roll call of all councillors and ask you to confirm that you are present. Thank you.
Thank you.
Over to Juliet.
Councillor Blanchard-Cooper.
Present.
Councillor Malloy, we have apologies from Chair. Councillor Tandy.
Present.
Councillor Turner.
Present.
Councillor Dr. Walsh, I think, is having difficulties joining us, so we'll keep trying there, Chair. And Councillor Woodman.
Present.
Thank you, Chair.
Wonderful. Thank you, everyone, and thank you for attending. Okay, so number one on the agenda is mobile phones. Members are reminded to switch their mobile devices to silent for the duration of this meeting. Apologies. Do we have any apologies?
Councillor Malloy, Chair.
Thank you. I'm just checking. I've had an apology from Councillor Walsh just sent through to me. He said he's running a little bit late, he's afraid, but he will be with us.
Okay, that's noted. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. The standard declarations are noted. Members and officers are reminded to make any other declarations if they become apparent at the appropriate time during the meeting. Are there any further declarations? Anyone?
Nope.
No. Okay. Okay, we'll move on then to item 4, which is the minutes. If you turn to pages 4 to 13 in your agendas, you'll find the minutes from the meeting of the 21st of October. If everyone is happy with those minutes, we will ask those to be approved, and we'll make arrangements for me to sign those at a later date. And this will obviously be reflected in the minutes of this meeting. Is everyone content that these are a true reflection of the last meeting?
Yes, fine.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Wonderful. Thank you for that, and I will sign those at a later date. Next up, we have the Chair's report and urgent items. I will just take this opportunity just to explain, for the benefit of the public, why we are doing this meeting virtually. So we have had the slight change in guidance from the government, which was suggested where possible to work from home. I was asked this morning if I was content for the meeting to be using the virtual process that we have as a backup, effectively. And it is my belief that there's various aspects to this, that all councillors were asked by the officers if we would prefer to work from home or to work virtually if the numbers started to pick up. The majority felt it was better if we needed to be able to switch across, and that is part of the reason why we are doing this. It's also for the benefit of the team within the building, all the staff, because it's unfair to accept them to come into contact with us, which would increase the chances of the new variant being passed on and transmitted. There is also the issue that within the Manor House, for those who don't know the building, where we hold our meetings is a particularly wonderfully cold room, and to have the air flowing does make it rather much colder, and for a particularly longer meeting it would increase the chances of maybe not just COVID but other issues as well, and we don't want to have that extra strain on the NHS at the moment. So there are a number of different reasons. We have thought about this very carefully, and we believe that the business of the council can still be conducted in a very proper and appropriate way using this method. So I do hope those watching can understand why we have taken this decision at this time. So I do thank you. I'll move over to, pass over to the Assistant Town Clerk to confirm if there are any urgent items.
There are none, Chair.
Okay, thank you ever so much. And item 6 on the agenda is the public forum in accordance with the remote meetings protocol, which has been introduced by the Town Council. Any member of the public wishing to address the council or any of its committee during remote meetings should have emailed their submission to us one clear day before the meeting. I'll ask the Town Clerk to advise if there are any.
Again, there are none, Chair.
Can I just check, did anyone try to contact after that date, bearing in mind that we did only decide to go to virtual today?
Not that I'm aware of, Chair.
Wonderful. If any public were wanting to make any questions, please do feel free to write into us, and we will make sure that we get answers to you. So we do not want to exclude the public from this process, because we are always keen to hear and answer any questions that may arise. Item 7 is officers' reports. So if I can ask the committee to turn to page 14 on your agenda papers, and I'll ask Jules to take us through these reports. Over to you, Jules.
Thank you very much, Chair. We'll start off. The first report on your agenda papers, members, is the standing orders, and we've got an urgent action there to report. Very briefly, this is in respect of the Rosemead Park Trees project, and where we are replacing, or indeed have already taken out, the trees that were there. So following planning permission, one of the conditions that was attached to that permission was in terms of the specification on the trees themselves regarding both the number and the height of them. And whereas previously the committee had opted to go for slightly higher trees, because of the increase in number of trees, we had to reduce the spec slightly in terms of the height, but that's enabled us to meet the requirements of the planning consent and proceed with the project. That did come at a slightly higher cost, so the scheme total has increased from £29,258 to £30,818, an increase of just over £1,500, Chair. Because of the urgency there, that was signed off, and members are just asked to note that for us, please.
Okay, so is everyone happy to note that, or does anyone have any points they'd like to raise on that? I'll take the silence as an indication. Okay, so everyone's content with that. So we're moving on to item 7.1, standing orders and urgent actions. Oh no, sorry, we've just done that. Apologies. So if for those who are not watching, sorry, for those who are watching, if you can see my desk at the moment, it's a bit random. Everything's gone a bit Pete-ong tonight. So we have got item 7.2. Events and periodic report, which is on pages 17 to 20.
Thank you very much, Chair. This report is an update really for members, and it contains information regarding feedback on the last two events of this year for us, which was Remembrance Sunday and the Christmas light switch on, both of which were very well received. In addition to that, there's also an update in terms of progress for the plans for the 2022 to 2023 events programme. One key recommendation within that follows up from the Christmas light switch on, where based on feedback and how the event operates, it's proposed that we move the date of the switch on from a Friday to a Saturday next year, Chair. And that's for logistical reasons, but also we believe that it will produce a much better event as well. And having consulted with traders, they would agree with that. So otherwise, take any questions that members have got and ask that that recommendation be considered, please.
Okay, thank you for that, Jules. So, does anyone have any questions in regards to this? I'll just give you a moment. I'm having to.
Councillor Turner has indicated she wishes to speak.
Lovely. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to commend the events team for the events that they've put on. I think they made a remarkable job in very difficult circumstances, and I think both events, the Remembrance Parade and the light switch on, were very well attended, and I think they deserve commendation for it. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you for that, Councillor Turner. And I'm sure the whole committee, and the council, I'm sure, would echo those points. It's not an easy thing to do, particularly the Christmas one. There's so many people, and it did go particularly well. I have to say, I was very pleased to see the reindeer back, which went down incredibly well with the public, and it was good to see such long queues. As always, there is always different bits that we will try to alter and improve, but I think that's the same with everything in life. You always want to strive for the best that we can, and the only way for doing that is continually reviewing and tweaking. So hopefully next year will be an even better year. But we might not have reindeer, we might have something else, who knows? Let's wait and find out. Was there anyone else waiting to speak, Jules?
No, there isn't, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, so to that note then, is everyone happy to note the report and the recommendations? I'm going to take the silence as a yes.
Agreed.
Thank you very much, Chair. We'll note those comments too. Some of the team are on duty tonight, so I'm sure that's appreciated. Thank you.
Fab. So the next one is 7.3, which is the Visit Littlehampton report, which is on pages 21 to 22.
Thank you very much, Chair. This report follows on from the report members received at the last meeting in October, where members wanted more clarity regarding the actual costs associated with upgrading the website into the new format, particularly to see whether or not the functionality of the existing website could accommodate some of the changes that we wish to make. It's not possible to do that, so it is still recommended that we make the change onto the new format, and members are asked to approve that, Chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. I think we've got Councillor Woodman with a question. Am I correct?
Indeed.
I just had, I'm trying to go across two computers now, so it's all very confusing. Apologies, this. Councillor Woodman.
Yes, you asked us to have a look in an email recently. You asked us to have a look at the Visit Littlehampton website before this meeting, so I did. So it's not a question. I've got comments to make about it, really. I think, you know, I have looked at it in the past, but not for a long time. The front page banner pictures are great and it looks really good. Some things you have to dig deeper to find them. Like East Beach, for example, the main beach is not one of the main attractions. I thought it was fine. It just needs updating, and I don't mean it needs to be changed into a different format. I mean there's what's on things for 22 are not yet on there, and they should. I feel they should be. And on the Where to Stay tab, it goes to a 404 error.
Yeah.
So I don't know if things haven't been added to it or it hasn't been updated because we're thinking of changing it. I'm not sure it needs to be baby and bathwater. I think it just needs updating. That's my
So what you're saying is that the site itself is okay, but the content appears to have not been updated.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for taking the time to have a good look at that site. Was there anyone else? Anyone else, Jules?
Councillor Tandy has indicated he wishes to speak, Chair, and then Councillor Turner.
Fantastic. Councillor Tandy.
Thank you, Chair. I think we talked about this at the last meeting, and I was sceptical at the time. Having looked at it and read the report and explored the website, I'm more comfortable with it now. I think based on what I saw and based on the content of the report, I think there is reasons to go with the recommendations for the simple fact that as it stands, we've got two very good websites in the council website and the museum website that are in one format and can be easily updated by officers. And we have this legacy website that's hosted elsewhere and is therefore kind of harder to update. And so the issues that Councillor Woodman raises are going to be able to be addressed so soon, because reading the report, it's clear that one of the things this will allow is that it will allow a lot more rapid kind of updates and kind of, I suppose it's more that we will have officers in the council, multiple officers who will be able to update it. So I'm thinking it's hard because, as we're going to go on and talk about, the budget is tight, but looking at the financial implications in section 4, I think it's manageable. And I think given that we are looking at with things like COVID ongoing, we are going to be looking at internal tourism and domestic tourism a lot more. So we do really need to make sure that our offer is clear and kind of robust and stands up to other destinations. So on balance, I think it's a tight call, Chair, but I would be in favour of the recommendations.
Okay, thank you ever so much, Freddie. By Councillor Tandy. Next we have Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Chair. Oh, red line. I agree with Freddie on that. I think the amount of money is negligible in terms of what we're getting and what we're already spending to go with the changes and go with the recommendation. And I think with my husband having just gone through the process of one for the bowling club that we belong to, I know how difficult it is to try and coordinate these things, and if it can all be coordinated from one location or one person or one group rather than different formats, I think it's going to be so much easier. So I would be happy to go with the recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have we got anyone else, Jules?
No, Chair.
Okay, in which case I think it was I must admit, looking at it, I'm pleased that the report has come back. There was more meat to the bones, effectively, or for our vegan friends out there, more vegan sausage roll in the pastry. But I do feel that it is clearer now as to why. I feel the points that Councillor Woodman made were very justified, but it does explain why we need this now to try and move it forward. And it is tight at the moment on the budget, which we will be going into more in detail later. But it does make sense to have the three as the same style, effectively. Training wise, it will be better for the team as well. But I think we need to just run through and take a vote on it. Not a named vote, but if we could just clearly make sure everyone's happy. So those in favour of the recommendation, if I can hear a yes or a no, please. Those in favour?
Yes.
Yes.
It's a yes from myself.
Yeah.
Those against? And any abstentions? I'm seeing Councillor Woodman's icon flash. I've not heard you,
yes.
though, Mother. Is that you're in favour?
Yeah, sorry, just to say though, the old website was such that the council staff couldn't change things. When we go into this new thing, are we going to make sure that we're not caught in some other trap?
Yeah, that's exactly it, if I may, Chair.
Yep.
onto this platform puts us on the same level as we've successfully done with the museum one. It makes it much more accessible for us and for our officers to deal with.
Okay, yeah, fine, in favour then.
Wonderful, and thank you all. Okay, so next up, I think the only other thing to note that
Thank you.
the next item is 7.4, pages 23 to 27, the museum periodic reports, which we have some interesting items on.
We do, thank you, Chair. First of all, just a bit of good news out there in that our new curator has just started with us. Julia joins us from Amberley Museum, and at the moment she's giving us 1 day a week while she transitions from her old role to join us full-time starting in the new year, so that is good news. Looking at
May I just interject there?
Sorry?
May I just interject there?
Please.
Having been on the interview panel for this position, Julia was a wonderful candidate for this. I welcome her to the team at the town council. I would say please let her get her feet in under the door
Thank
first, and then please feel free to make some time to go and speak for her. Her knowledge is wonderful, and she's a very lovely person, and I think she's going to be a real asset to the team and bring something very different to this role. She's used to working with a much larger team, and she's very focused on volunteers, so I think she will be looking to spice things up a little bit, so I look forward to that in the future. So, sorry, back to you, Jules.
Thank you, Chair. As do I think, but yes, a very welcome appointment. So I think we're very fortunate. The main recommendations on the report that members have is regarding some potential acquisitions there. There are two that are fairly straightforward in terms of acceptances, as they would enhance the current collection and meet the criteria. The one that I do want to draw members' attention to is the ship, which under normal circumstances, the size is something that would have given us quite an issue, but we do recognise that it does represent some very interesting displays of the area's maritime heritage. And with that in mind, we would like to see what else we might be able to do, which is why the proposal is that we contact the donor and see what options there might be to ensure that this item can be taken into the area and displayed locally. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So, as I said at the beginning, we have some unusual items here today as well, which my reference was to the boat, to the ship. So, just from my knowledge, what will happen if we're not able to find somewhere suitable for this? Because it is a very large item. Would we still take it to the museum until we can find somewhere? Or
it's an interesting question. I think we need to have a detailed conversation with the donor, because it might be of interest to the Harbour Board. Things are changing all the time in the town as well. We mentioned Julia's appointment. The blessing with that appointment is she comes with a lot of ideas, and that is in terms of using space and perhaps working with the local community to see if there might be other, perhaps more appropriate areas where it could go. So I would say it's all up for grabs, but the opportunity to explore that, and hopefully the donor would be responsive to that, because it is something that we would all like to see preserved, I think. We'll see what they say.
Wonderful. Okay, in which case we have the recommendations before us. I'll first of all open up to questions. Do we have any questions or comments from the committee? We have Councillor Turner with a question.
No questions, just a comment. I'm so welcome to the new curator, and hope she settles in very quickly. And it would be very sad if we lost that picture. That picture is amazing. and I was thinking of places like the Manor House itself, in the chamber. If there was somewhere in the chamber it could go, or the library or something like that would be very appropriate places. But then you said about that the new curator has ideas, so it may well be that she comes up with ideas. But I'm quite happy to accept all three. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? I don't believe there is. Okay, in which case we're asked to note the museum staffing update, consider the recommendation for acquisition on the items, and otherwise note the report. Are we all content to do so? All in favour, say yes.
Yes.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you ever so much. I would just ask Julia if we could have an update as to what happens with this. We'd like to follow its story.
No, yeah, we'll do.
Because being a boat, it's going to go on a journey.
Yeah, certainly. We'll keep you appraised, Chair.
Fantastic. Thank you ever so much. That'd be absolutely spiffing.
Thank
Okay, moving on to 7.5, Community Resources Periodic Report, pages 28 to 30.
Thank you, Chair. I'll take it that members have read the report. We've already noted the urgent action and the progress with the rosemead trees, in the sense that if you go up there now, there aren't any because the contractors have started work, which is good news.
So sorry, people, it's too late to go back now. You can't change your mind.
Very much so, yes. And the only other item that we have in terms of recommendations is, following the last meeting, we are in discussions with our current contractor regarding taking forward this committee's recommendations on the planting for next year. So in order for that conversation to continue, as we are all at the end of one planting season and looking now towards spring, the recommendation there is to delegate authority back to officers in consultation with yourself, Chair, so that we can take that forward into next year. Other than that, the updates on the report are to note. Thank you.
Okay, lovely. Does anyone have any questions or comments regarding this? Just give me a moment. Doesn't appear so. Okay, so in which case, can I start that you're all content to note the recommendations and to delegate authority to the town clerk in consultation with myself?
Forgive me, Chair. Councillor Tandy has indicated he wants to speak.
Oh, lovely. Councillor Tandy.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies, I was a bit late on the old
That's
keyboard.
all right.
I just wanted to
We'll get back and used to doing it this way.
And in doing this, I probably should declare a personal interest as a member of Wic Action Group. With regards to the Wic Christmas tree at the top of 29, I don't know. I was out of the loop just because of work was very busy, so I didn't get a chance to be part of the team that sorted that out. But I don't know if it was us or the council, if there's a combination of where the tree was placed. Because I'll be honest, the tree in Wic is not in a great position this year. So if we could have a discussion going forward about possible alternative sites, because at the moment it's very hidden away. If you're coming down from Morrison's, you literally can't see it until you've gone past it. But yeah, that would be good. Thank you, Chair.
Lovely. I'm sure Jules has noted that. I just saw her scribbling away, and I'm sure that's possible.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, that was actually because we've worked very closely with the church there. That's where the tree has traditionally been placed, but I've noted that comment and we can take it forward next year.
Lovely, thank you. I think it's actually been nearer to the gates in the past, from memory.
Well, they did have a porter cabin on the site there, so it's very
I was about to say that.
Yeah, but anyway, we work closely with the church up there on a number of things, including the information centre, so we will take that one forward.
Lovely. Thank you ever so much. I believe Councillor Turner wished to speak.
Thank you, Chair. I just wondered if we've got any date for when they're going to plant the trees at Rosemead.
Probably early in the new year, Councillor Turner. At the moment, they have taken the majority of them down. The next big job is to basically grind out the stumps, and these things were fairly well rooted, so that will take a bit of time. But the only blessing is, as we've mentioned in the report, that it does give us the opportunity to dedicate that new avenue of trees as part of next year's Platinum Jubilee celebrations. So every cloud.
Yes, yeah. And also the new Wic Centre, is there any date for progressing that?
At the moment, the planning application is in, and as I've said in the report there, the deadline for the decision is the end of this year. All being well, we'll get through planning in the next in the early months of the year, and we'll be looking to tender the building contract and works for that. So we're on target, as we've said previously, looking at a new build being up and running May, June 2023.
Sorry, can you just excuse me for 1 sec?
Sorry, Councillor Tandy, you are there, are you? But that's the latest update that we have on that project. So as that moves on, members will start to receive more information about the progress.
No problem.
Okay, that's lovely. Thank you.
Thanks.
That's all right. Sorry, we have an unusual situation. We have a... Hang on.
Sorry, Chair, is there a problem?
No, we're having an unusual situation here. You'll see in just a moment. We have another member of the committee.
Ah, Councillor Dr. Walsh.
Yes, I've got no calendar invitation and therefore couldn't log into the meeting. I've been trying for 20 minutes and nothing works.
I apologise for that. I have noted that you've now joined us. Thank you.
Thanks.
Chair.
Right, apologies for that. Just had to go and run to the door. I will just explain for anyone watching who might comment that we're obviously trying to do this virtually, but the two of us are together. We did actually go out for a meal together last night, so I think the risk is minimal. So that just to cover that point.
I've also done a lateral flow test and it's negative.
Wonderful, which I have done as well this morning.
Thank you very much, Chair.
It's a very fun day today.
It
And
is.
thank you, Councillor Turner, for that. And apologies that I just had to run off just then. Was there anyone else, Jules?
I believe that was it on the report, Chair. I just updated members on the progress with the planning application and explained regarding the new youth centre in Wic that we hope to be on target with the current timeline.
Lovely. Thank you ever so much. In which case, sorry, can we just add into the notes? I emailed this previously to yourself, Jules, about doing a photo, some sort of, I think my wording was launch with local groups or children.
Indeed. You mentioned, Chair, when we actually dedicate that avenue of new trees.
Yes. Yeah. Can we include that into the minutes, please? That'd be wonderful.
Yep.
Thank you. Okay, so so I've lost my place completely.
Just the one recommendation, otherwise to note the report, Chair, and the delegation of authority to officers with yourself regarding taking forward the discussions on the floral planting for next year.
Lovely. Is everyone content with both of those?
Agreed.
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 Yes, agreed.
Wonderful. Thank you ever so much. Okay, on to item 7.6, which is on pages 31 to 35 of your papers, which is the Southfield Jubilee Centre fees and charges annual report.
Thank you very much, Chair. As members will recall, every year we revisit the charges and fees applicable in terms of this committee's responsibilities, Southfield's Jubilee Centre, and that's the hire charge proposals. Every year at about this time, we do an exercise to find out how we compare with neighbouring parishes and the facilities available, and put forward proposals for consideration for this committee. Obviously, we're up against it in terms of increasing costs, as is everybody else, I think, at the moment, particularly with our utilities costs. Members have got before them figures that we've prepared with 1% and 2% increases to give you some idea of what that means. At the moment, all I would say is that these proposed increases barely cover the costs that we're facing, as everybody does, with inflation as it is at the moment, and likely to be even worse next year. The proposals there are at 1% and 2%. We're asking members to consider whether or not they want to increase the fees, and if they do, the level that they would like to apply next year. I'll hand it over to committee chair for discussion.
Okay, I'll open that up. Councillor Walsh, I've got your hand raised in my background, so here you go.
Thanks very much, Chairman, and apologies to the meeting for being late, but I was at a very important Arran District Council committee meeting where we've unanimously agreed to accept the £19.4 million of levelling up fund, of which £6 or £7 million is being spent in Littlehampton. So that's now been agreed at Arran, so it's great news for Littlehampton. So apologies for that. I thought that was very important to be there, speak to support that. I don't think we've got any choice in this matter. Unfortunately, inflation is something we don't have any control over. Everybody in the country knows that utility bills, gas and electricity in particular, are going up, and those are major components of what we have to pay for running the Jubilee Centre and indeed all our buildings. And therefore, I don't think we've got any choice but to accept the 2% uplift, which, as the Juliet rightly points out, barely covers the cost, and probably won't cover the cost because inflation is running at 3 or 4% at the moment, and is reckoned to be reaching 5% before coming down again. So I would suggest to the committee that we accept the 2% uplift. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Walsh. Does anyone else have any comments on this?
Okay.
Councillor Turner.
Can't keep my mouth shut, can I?
There's nothing wrong with that.
I've looked at the comparison between what it is now, current charges, and what it would be at 2%. The difference is so minimal. It's like 25p. It really is so minimal that I was looking at the weekends for the large hall, and I just think that it's so minimal that we should go for the 2%.
Okay, thank you. I saw we had Councillor Woodman appear on.
Councillor Tandy was there just before.
Okay, sorry, Councillor Tandy and then Councillor Woodman. Sorry, I missed you then, Councillor Tandy.
That's all right, Chair. I entirely agree with the 2%. I think if we are, as we've said several times now through this meeting, the budget is very tight. So the idea that we're going to start then subsidising groups to use a hall when actually, like Councillor Turner said, it's the difference of 25p seems illogical. Could I just put in a bid to make sure that we are really maximising advertising and getting the word out there that this is available, because it, like, certainly in kind of the half of the town it's in, it is well known, but I think like the further away we get, people forget it's there just because they just don't necessarily drive past it and things. So I was just thinking outside of the box. Have we considered things like putting a banner outside? Because Southfields Road is driven quite a lot down just to like catch the eye, or perhaps even like, I don't know how this would work feasibly, but things like free trials, if a group's interested, just to say use it for free for 2 weeks to see if you get the custom, and if they get the custom they might then do a long-term booking. I think, yeah, just anything we can do to really maximise people's knowledge and experience of it, Chair. I'm happy to support 2%.
Thank you, Councillor Tandy. And great minds think alike, because I was going to, at the end of this, propose that we ask officers to go away and formulate a new approach to try and increase the bookings for this site, including things such as banners. We have the side by the entrance where we could have some big poster boards to advertise the prices and what goes on there as well, which would be really good for the main events there. An open day. There's lots that we could do to try and increase the usage of this site. Thank you, Jules, because you emailed me with some more information earlier this week, which included that at the moment we're running about 50% capacity, which is good, but we can do better. And I'm sure with a bit of a push, we can get even more going on there. I do feel that having some sort of open day would be really useful, even if we needed to use a small amount of money to maybe create our own event to encourage people there. So it could be something, we've missed out on the mark really on this one. We could have done something like a carol concert for local groups, just that they could actually see the venue. But obviously it's a bit too late for that now. I'm not going to ask you to do an event within 1 week, Jules, because I think you might throw something at me. But okay, so next up we had Councillor Woodman.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I thought 2%, because doing some calculations, if you were to hire the large hall at the weekend for a number of hours with the kitchen and the music, it's, you know, very cheap compared to, like, I know you've compared with other local places, but compared to places in Worthing, it is very cheap. So 2% easily.
Lovely, thank you ever so much. Did we have anyone else?
Councillor Turner, Chair.
I've just come back with something.
No problem.
What I'd like to know, because nothing is said on the sheet here, if somebody was to have a party, can they serve alcohol in Southfields?
No. That was a condition when the building was originally put in, that because of its close proximity to a public street, that was not felt appropriate to be able to serve alcohol. There are parties allowed there, but only up to the age of 11, I'm thinking from memory. So we can facilitate kids' parties, but nothing above that, which unfortunately does restrain us slightly, because it would be a good venue, certainly for doing, I'm using the word adults parties very carefully. Stop grinning, Jules. But yes, unfortunately, we are not allowed to do that as part of the original T's and C's, so to speak. I'll just look at Jules. She's nodding her head. I think I've correctly answered that one for you.
Lovely, thank you. It's just I'm looking for a venue for me for my birthday next year.
For your 21st, yes?
Of course it is.
Yes.
Again. So yes, if I can't have a party and we can't give our guests alcohol, then I wouldn't be able to go there. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you for that.
Okay, I believe I've got Councillor Woodman wanting to come back.
Yeah, sorry. Can the hirer apply for their own alcohol licence?
I'm doing this off the back of my head. So I think there would be potential to apply for a temporary events notice, which to that site you would only be entitled to 5 per year, which would be at the subject of the permissions granted by the owner of the building, ourselves. I don't believe we would be able to, on the basis of the permissions to which the building was originally granted permission. That said, I'll declare an interest as the chair of licensing. I can double check on that tomorrow when I've got the licensing meeting. I think Peter's just going to pop in.
Could I just say, Chair, that it's also the policy of the council is not to do these alcoholic dues in any of our venues. So just it's worth bearing in mind that's our policy as well.
Oh, is it? Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, so we have a policy on that as well. We might need to review that. Okay, thank you ever so much, Peter. I have Councillor Walsh who'd like to speak.
May I just ask another question? If it's hired for a private occasion, i.e. for a wedding reception or whatever, presumably they can give away alcohol to their guests.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Again, no, this would not be permissible because the I believe I'm right in saying that the terms of the conditions for the actual site was that no alcohol was to be consumed on the premises.
Consumed.
So I believe I'm right in saying that. I'm looking at Jules and Peter for advice on this.
To be honest, I can't remember, but we had a very long discussion and a long debate about whether we should do drinks because it creates alcohol. Because whilst I get several approaches, I put it a different way. I listened to what you said earlier, Chair, and we do get approaches quite regularly to do wakes at both Southfields and at the Manor House, and I have got latitude in the way that it was drafted to allow, in certain circumstances, these things to happen, and will do given certain circumstances. But loosening it very far creates a much bigger problem. There's one thing is having 10 people gather for a wake in a small room at Southfields or in the chamber or something, and having 40 teenagers or 40 20-year-olds or 100 20-year-olds at Southfields. They're different ends of the scale, and we're not staffed or or in a position to be able to do that. If members wanted us to look at it, as particularly on the new centres as they come through, we would need to look at a completely different charging regime because we'd need people to be there at the events all the way through. We'd certainly need some kind of very heavy presence, not bouncers, but a visible presence, and we'd need to cost all that in. And I think, hearing what members are saying, I think it's the kind of thing we could certainly look at North Atlanton Community Centre when it comes on, because that's not immediately adjacent to residences, and it should be being built at the same time as residences, even a bit further away, come online. So the idea of it being a facility that those kind of things could happen at would be a good thing, but it needs to be costed and worked through on that way.
Okay, I think that would be sensible. We could have some more information on that as well, and if we could actually have some more information for the next meeting regarding how we would, well, what the rules are regarding particularly the Manor House for wakes, if we were to look at that, because I think there is potential for more income through that.
If you want me to, I'll take the report to P&P, because obviously Manor House comes under P&P.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
If I could request that we ask the chair of P&P to do that, that'd be wonderful. Thank you. Did I see Councillor Woodman pop back up?
You did, Chair.
Councillor Woodman.
I didn't mean to pop.
Did you not? Was that a naughty pop? Right, in which case I think everyone's asked everything. Yep. So I'm just going back to the recommendations. So are we all content with 2%?
Yes.
This hand is James's, so we have James saying yes.
Yes.
Agreed.
Okay, so that's agreed with a 2% increase, which I have to say, I think considering the, I mean, everyone knows what the energy prices are like at the moment, the prices, I think that's actually a very fair and sensible increase. My camera seems to have just disappeared. I don't know why.
Chair, yeah.
There you go. I didn't press anything. So yes, but I do think that is a fair and sensible one on that. So thank you to everyone on that. Okay, so the next item is 7.7, review the strategic aims and objectives on pages 36 to 48.
There's another recommendation, Billy, on.
Oh, is there?
Delegate authority.
Where have I missed that, Jules?
Delegating authority.
It is a standard recommendation, Chair, that the authority to the town clerk to apply discounts to long hours or multiple bookings, which is something that we carry forward annually.
You're quite right. Thank you for that, Councillor Turner. Is everyone in favour of that?
Agreed.
Agreed. Thank you for pointing that one out. As I say, I'm sitting here with 2 sets of paper, 2 screens, and everything a little bit chaotic at the moment. Okay, we're moving on then, as I said, to pages 36 to 48, and I'll pass over to Jules.
Thank you, Chair. So members hopefully have had the chance to look through this, but long story short, we've been through a process including reviews of priorities, bringing all our strategic documents up to date, the risk registers, etc. And this is the last piece of the puzzle, and that's our aims and objectives, the strategic policy document that we put out in terms of the key policies for this council. Each committee is being asked to review those. Some of them have been updated following this particular process, and those have been highlighted, and the chair did point out to me, but just to be clear, where you see items in red in your report, members, that is where we are proposing changes or updates to the existing strategic aims and objectives as they relate to this committee. They are listed, the main changes on the report there at 1.3 in the table, and I'm asking members to approve that so that it can go forward to full council for approval in January. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Okay, I'll just wait to see if anyone pops up. Councillor Tandy.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of suggestions or queries about whether we might include other things. Starting on section 1 on allotments, which is I know your and my favourite topic, Chair. We have had a long discussions about the, as we go on to the budget discussion, about the balance of how allotments are funded, and how it currently does sit very heavily with a subsidy from the general reserves compared to the rent. I'm just beginning to wonder that as we push that forward and try and increase the amount that it is on, not necessarily on plot holders, but reduce the cost to other taxpayers who aren't benefiting from that, would it be worth inserting an aim and objective to try and reduce, someone else can phrase it better than me, but to reduce the amount of
reduce the associated costs
to,
yeah.
It's just the suggestions. I know every year, Chair, we have like long discussions about what the increase should be, so it's almost like if we can direct that it's in our policies that we are trying to do this and full council endorses that, I think that might put us on a stronger footing.
I think that'd be very sensible, and I'd fully support that.
Thank you. Do you want...
I've just got James.
I was just going to suggest, Mr. Chairman, in the form of words, to seek to balance the allotments account in terms of income and expenditure.
That sounded very formal and very government speak, so yes.
That's, if I may, Chair, that's actually, I welcome that comment. We referred back in Mike's report, Community Officer's report, that we are looking at putting together a strategy for the management of the allotments going forward, and particularly taking into consideration the point that Councillor Tandy has made. Consideration of the gap really between income and expenditure, and looking to bring those two together, as Dr. Walsh said, to seek to balance the books at the end of the day. So we'll come up with a form of words to take that into consideration if members are happy with that.
Okay, so before we go any further, can I just check the, Peter, are you wanting to speak on this?
So just very briefly, could we just lose the words seeking to balance? I think to improve would be good, because seeking to balance, we all get an immediate response that the allotment rents are going to go up 4 times or something, because that's how heavy the subsidy is at the moment. I would just, you may decide to get that as we go through the process next year, but to improve the
I think that's sensible.
I'm very happy with that, Town Clerk, thank you.
Okay, so with that gist of wording, can I just check that all of the committee are content with that, that we're looking to improve the balance of the costs associated with the allotments. And obviously,
Agreed.
it's me, James, Freddie. Is that Bob?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, so that's carried. So you had another one, Freddie?
Yes, please, Chair. This was on, it's on page 46 or page 9 of 11, depending on what sequence you're using. With reference to the community arts, the one in red says provide continued support to the Dairy Arts Drop-in Group, reviewed annually by CRC during the grant process. I'm just asking a question of, I don't know how comfortable I feel with naming one specific group over others in the aims and objectives. If someone else started an arts group, it might just be read as we're not going to support them over others. So I'm just suggesting, is there a reason we explicitly name them, or would it be better if we just said provide continued support to arts and arts groups and organisations? Because we do support a lot more like LOCA and others.
Interestingly, this is one I have a note on as well myself, so I fully agree with that. Jules?
It is a historic arrangement, and I can see Town Clerk's come back on the screen. He may know slightly more about it than I do.
When it comes to historic, Chair, that people look at me. That's the problem. The issue is the Dairy Arts Group was actually a town council creation. That's the reason for continuing to support it, because whilst it's gone its own way, it is our own creation as such, rather than other groups. So that's why the specific mention of it is in there.
Okay.
Right. Okay. Could we?
Sorry, so I should say, Chair, that doesn't preclude supporting other arts groups or anything like that.
That's what I was going to say. Could we alter the wording to maybe provide continued support to the Dairy Arts Drop-in Group and other local arts and initiatives?
Local arts initiatives, yeah.
Yeah.
Would everyone be happy with that?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you for picking that one up, Freddie. It's on my notes as well. Did you have anything else, Councillor Tandy?
No, that's me done, Chair.
Okay. Who do we have next? I've lost track.
Councillor Turner, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Turner.
So mine was back on allotments. I was a bit slow there because I lost my sound and I didn't hear anything for ages. It was to do with the one complaint I had from somebody about allotments was that when an allotment became vacant, it seemed to be a long time before it was then let out to somebody else, to the extent that they would become overgrown, and they were wondering if there was some way of speeding up the passing on of an allotment to a new tenant.
It's in it, bullet points.
Well,
Within 4 weeks.
I was going to say, James just picked that up for me. It does say, page 41, the fourth point, I think, from the bottom.
Yep.
It should be seek to let a plot within 4 weeks of it becoming vacant. So the part of the issue with this might be the point at which it becomes vacant. So, and I'm just explaining this for yourself, Councillor Tandy. Councillor Turner. So when a plot becomes vacant, it might not be quite as obvious as what it seems. So the site may become what appears to be vacant. However, in the same methodology as a property having to be vacated, the council would have to give proper notice to the site holder to ensure that they are, firstly, that we've made sure that they are aware that their site needs to be vacated, give due course for them to get in touch, because it may be that although they've not been working their site, there may be other reasons for it, such as poor health, family bereavement, etc., etc. So there could be a reason where as a council, we do try to be very fair and give people that opportunity to come back and say, yes, we've got to find a resolve to this to help them as well. So we are normally pretty quick at filling these within 4 weeks of once all the ticks are in place. So I would say anyone who speaks to you about this and anyone listening, we do tend to actually hit that 4-week mark because we've got a long waiting list of people wanting to get on site. But what might appear longer is that space before all those ticks complete, and also after we've then handed those keys over, someone has just got their keys to the new site. They might not be ready to actually move straight onto that site that same day. So they might want to get some things in place. They might have to rejiggle time. They might be planning what they want to do with the site. So it might appear longer than those 4 weeks. I hope that covers that. And but if you're ever wanting to know more about the allotments, do feel free to either speak to myself or one of the officers, because it's a real eye-opener, and even speak to the allotmenteers themselves, because they've got more knowledge than any of us on this, and we do try to work very closely with the various site reps to make sure that our allotments are full, are tidy, and that everyone is getting the most out of those sites. Because we do have, as a council, we have a lot of allotment sites, so we are constantly trying to make sure that we're doing better for those. So I hope that answers that question for you, Councillor Turner.
That's lovely. Thank you very much indeed.
No problem at all. Was there anything you wish to add, Jules?
No, thank you, Chair. It is a process. You're absolutely right, and we do our best to work with allotment holders to move it forward as quickly as we can, so that we can give all residents that want to the opportunity to do allotments. I don't know if there are any more questions. There was a couple of bits of housekeeping subsequent to the report going out that we would do, and that was we spoke about the museum volunteering and tidying up the wording there, just to say that it actively promotes volunteering, and making sure that when it comes to the community centres policy, at the moment it specifies community use, promoting and increasing, which we've just discussed anyway, community use at Southfields. The suggestion is that we just put all community facilities there, because we are going to have more community centres coming online, hopefully in the near future. Other than that,
so those are 2 points that I asked to have changed on this. Is everyone content with those?
Agreed.
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 Yeah.
Wonderful.
thank you.
Okay.
So subject to those amendments, we'll take that forward. Thank you.
Wonderful. Do we have any other questions, or from anyone waiting?
No, Chair.
Our last one. Wonderful. Okay, so that's all done then. Item 8.1, committee finance reports attached on pages 49 to 51. We have oh Lord Supreme Leader, Councillor, not Councillor, we're not promoting them. Town Clerk Peter Herbert has appeared on screen, so I think he's going to help us through this one.
Well, if I may, Chair, the first report is just the committee quarterly budget finance update, which gives a brief outline of where we are in this financial year and highlights any significant variances. Unless members have got any questions, that's just to note.
Anyone? No, in which case, are we all happy to note the report?
Agreed.
Thank you, Chair. You can hand over to the Town Clerk if you wish, Chair.
Yeah. Go for it, Peter.
Thank you, Chair, but never quite the quality to aspire to being a councillor, I fear.
One day.
The pay's
No, only in my wildest dreams. So what I thought I'd do here, some councillors who are sitting around, well, who are at this meeting, have heard this bit before, but I think it's important that all councillors are aware of the overall budget position. which is tough. A lot of it not through our own making. And I need to just explain to you why the budget as a whole is under pressure, which is then why there are constraints on each of the committee budgets that are coming through committee. Some of them are things that the town council wants to do. There are pressures on the budgets as a result of that, such as town centre management, such as community wardens, such as perhaps most significantly for this committee, building up the budgets to enable us to run the 2 new community facilities, which should probably be both with us at this rate within 2 years. What we wouldn't want to do is to have a situation whereby we're trundling along happily at one level, and in 2 years' time, oops, we've got to bang up by a huge amount just to cover those community centres. So that's what's driving from that side. But there are other factors, some of which you've actually alluded to earlier. One of them is salaries. Not that there are huge increases sitting out there, but members may recall that a year ago the government were telling us that there would be no increases in public sector salaries apart from nurses. So we put 1% into the budget to cover increments, which we thought was actually would comfortably cover increments. At the moment, it hasn't been awarded yet, but there is an offer from the employers sitting out there, which is to be backdated to the 1st of April of 1.75%. Now, that almost certainly is the minimum that will come through, and that obviously impacts this year, but obviously impacts the base level for next year as well. So that is completely unbudgeted for. Then there's things such as the social care levy, which in fact I haven't got the figure as actually how much it would cost, but it will affect us all who paid national insurance, but it will also impact employers, and that's 1.25%. For us, we're estimating it just over £4,000. All small bits, I accept, but if you put all the small bits together, it turns into a lot. Also previously mentioned was the inflation rate. The inflation rate is going to hit us all across our goods and across the board, but most notably on our gas and electricity services, which was mentioned previously and in the report. Our supplier went bust a couple of weeks ago. We feared that was going to lead to a trebling of our prices on contract. It isn't quite as bad as that, it's near a double, but it is still a significant cost that we're taking on board. So decisions that you made earlier about the Southfields one go a little way to addressing those costs, but they are issues that this committee and council as a whole will need to pick up, both with regard to allotments, but to all the charges that we make as to how much the council wants to subsidise services. There's nothing wrong with that. That's a political decision. It's not I'm not here to tell you that. Those are decisions that you need to make. I just need to bring the facts and figures to you in due course, which we will certainly need to look at over the course of the next 12 months. It doesn't mean you'll have to increase anything, but you might wish to. And what is important is I think that you decide how much subsidy you actually want to give to these things, and that's a key political decision. So that's in the offing. I will bring papers to you in that, but as you know, I have a new deputy and RFO, and trying to get him to hit him with that as well as a budget on his arrival and everything else would have just been beyond it. So that is a piece of work for next year, and I say that particularly because it's the following year's budget. This one is just about manageable, although, and I'll come to that in a minute, the following year's budget is under greater strain. So this is not a one-off. Actually, after that, it eases. There's a summit here that we will pass over and come out the other side. So this is not a doom and gloom for the rest of time sort of thing. So the recommendations from this committee and Property and Personnel, which was on Tuesday, Planning was on Monday, will go to Policy and Finance, who've got their own committee budget, and will then consider the whole council budget, and that's a week on Monday. They will have some options in front of them as to how they're going to address what is still an imbalance between expenditure and income. That's manageable. I would not put a report to that committee that isn't. So it is manageable, but there are some decisions and some choices that members need to make at that. We're not in the position of needing to make savage cuts, and I say that because this committee is perhaps with policy and finance, but principally this committee is the service committee. It's the forward-facing, public-facing committee. So there are no proposals in this budget to axe events or any other things that this committee does, but there are constraints on expansion. So I don't propose to run through all the various bits of this because I'm sure members have identified points that they'd like to ask or discuss. But I thought it was really important to just give you the backdrop to why that's happening. I'm happy to answer questions on that or indeed on the detail of the budget.
Okay, thank you for that, Peter, and thank you for the summary as to our position at the moment. You're quite right to explain to all that things are going to be tight. I think that's reflected in the council as much as people at home as well. So I will open this up to see if anyone's got any questions they'd like to ask. I've got Councillor Walsh beside me wanting to ask something.
Thank you, Chairman. It's not a question, it's a comment. I think the Town Clerk's just given a very fair summary and full summary of the financial constraints we're operating under, and everybody knows in their own personal lives and reading newspapers and looking at their bills that inflationary pressures are likely to peak. The forecasts are 5% in the coming year and then thereafter fall. So we're all under the same constraints, whether we're in public service or private budgets. I want to pay tribute to the officers and the committee chair and others who've been involved in discussions at producing this budget, because it's taken quite a lot of work to get to this stage, and I think actually balances the needs to maintain the front-facing services that benefit the community so much and are hugely popular with townsfolk, residents, and with the need to actually keep council tax increases from this council to an acceptable level. And I think the 3.5% overall forecast uplift that we're talking about in the papers that are before us tonight reflects that from this committee, and I would urge the committee to support the recommendation that's before it tonight.
Okay, thank you, James. Was there anyone who's come in?
No, Chair.
No? Okay, in which case the recommendation is to obviously comment on the draft committee budget. Recommend its proposals to the Policy and Finance Committee. Is everyone content with that?
Chair, could I just help Councillor Woodman
yeah.
out, just because I don't think we've been through this process before. Just to clarify the process that we go through here. So the committees make their recommendations to Policy and Finance, as I say, in the week before Christmas. Policy and Finance can do one of two things. It can agree and tinker slightly with those budgets, but agree in principle them and any other changes and make a recommendation to Council at the end of January. Or it could refer the things back to each of the committees to say this is not acceptable, we cannot deliver this, therefore can you really look at X, Y or Z? And that's why you have reserve dates in your diary for January meetings for each of the committees. So that could happen. I'm not expecting it to happen. It's never happened since I've been here, but this is probably the toughest budget that we've had since I've been here. So so I just thought, particularly for Councillor Woodman, who hasn't been through this cycle before, it would be useful for her to know that, but just to remind members how that process works.
Lovely. Thank you ever so much for that, Peter.
It's a triple lock approach.
Quite. We have a few methods to go through to make sure we are doing it all correct and for the best as well. Okay. So was everyone content with that first recommendation?
Agreed.
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 Lovely. So what was the next bit, Jules? Because I've lost my place.
There are no further recommendations, Chair. If members are content to recommend the budget as it stands to the Policy and Finance Committee, it will go through the process as the Town Clerk has just explained. And the only other item there is to note the earmarked reserve position, which I'm assuming councillors are content with also, but you might want to check.
I'll just check if anyone's got any comments on that.
Agreed.
No, in which case, all happy with that then?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay. Right. So, just before we move on from that, I would just like to echo what James said earlier, and thank you to all the staff and the team who've been involved in putting that together. It's not easy, particularly, I have to say, this year. I've witnessed a few of these, and since I've joined the council, this year has been a particularly hard year, and that, as I say, does reflect for everyone at home as well. It is belts being tightened, but we are going to strive to do our best for the town and deliver what we have always delivered, so that we continue forward. I've completely lost my place here, Jules. Is there any? There's nothing else, is there?
There
In which
is no other
case,
business, Chair, no.
no, thank you. In which case, I'd just like to thank everyone on this committee, and again, thank you to the public for understanding why we've switched over to the virtual. And we've had a couple of slight tinkering issues tonight, but it's gone through. Thank you ever so much for that. And as I won't get an opportunity before the 25th, may I wish all at the town council, all of our fellow councillors, and all of the public particularly, a very joyful, safe and happy Christmas, as that is coming up very quickly. So have a wonderful time and keep safe. Thank you, everyone. Oh, and here we are with a bauble.
Thank you,
I'm not
Chair.
having a meeting with James Walsh beside me again. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.